The rise of the Leper King. The air crackles with tension as dawn ignites the sky over Jerusalem in the year 1161. A city ablaze with the fervor of pilgrims' chants and the sharp ring of steel from knights preparing for battle. Within the royal palace, a newborn's cry pierces the stillness. Baldwin, son of King Amalric I, destined to inherit a Crusader kingdom hanging by a thread. But fate holds a dark twist. By 9, a chilling secret unfolds during a lesson with his wise tutor, William of Tyre. Baldwin's arm lies lifeless, its skin scarred with sores that refuse to heal leprosy, a curse that could shatter his future. Yet, in his bright, unyielding eyes glimmers a spark of defiance, a will to rise above the unthinkable. For the next 30 minutes, let my calm voice draw you into the rise of Baldwin IV, the Leper King, a tale of courage born from the crucible of hardship, crafted to guide you into a peaceful slumber. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and step into a world where a boy's spirit begins to forge an unbreakable legend. The Holy Land in the 12th century was a land of breathtaking beauty and brutal conflict, a mosaic of Christian kingdoms carved out by the First Crusade, encircled by the growing might of Muslim leaders like Nur ad-Din. Jerusalem, its radiant core, pulsed with life, narrow streets fragrant with the spice of cumin and saffron from teeming markets, the sweat of soldiers guarding its towering walls, and the soft hum of prayers from Christian, Muslim, and Jewish souls living in fragile harmony. King Amalric III, Baldwin's father, ruled with a strategist's foresight, his reign a delicate balance of alliances with the Byzantine Empire and defenses against eastern threats. The palace, a fortress of cool stone and shaded courtyards where fountains trickled softly, was where Baldwin's early life began, born on a humid night when the stars seemed to pulse with an eerie, prophetic light, hinting at a destiny both noble and shadowed. From his earliest moments, Baldwin revealed a keen intellect and an insatiable curiosity that set him apart. His mother, Agnes of Courtenay, a woman of iron will and sharp tongue, surrounded him with the finest tutors, filling his days with Latin, the sagas of Rome, and the art of rulership. Yet it was William of Tyre, a scholar with a gentle voice and a scholar's deep wisdom, who became his truest guide. In the palace courtyard, where jasmine vines curled around marble columns, and their sweet scent mingled with the musty aroma of ancient scrolls, William taught Baldwin the strategies of war and the diplomacy of peace. One sweltering afternoon, as the sun cast long, dappled shadows across the tiles, a moment of unease arose. During a playful lesson on Roman shield tactics, William tapped Baldwin's left arm only to find it unresponsive. Alarm creased his brow as he examined the boy, uncovering small, persistent sores, early signs of leprosy, a disease cloaked in medieval horror. The diagnosis sent a shockwave through the palace, a secret kept under lock and key. Leprosy, or Hansen's disease, was a mystery to the physicians of the era, its cause unknown, its symptoms numbness, sores, and eventual disfigurement attributed to divine punishment or moral failing. The royal doctors, draped in long robes and wielding bronze tools, applied salves of honey, crushed marjoram, and vinegar, convinced they could purge the bad humors they believed fueled it. Yet the sores persisted, creeping slowly across Baldwin's arms and legs, a silent invader. Amalric, torn between a father's love and a king's duty, ordered the condition hidden, binding his courtiers to silence with stern edicts. In the shadowed corridors, whispers of pity and fear slithered. Nobles wondered if the heir's affliction signaled God's wrath, while servants murmured prayers for a miracle. The common folk, unaware, saw only a prince with a bright smile and a steady gaze, their ignorance a temporary veil against the truth. Undaunted by his illness, Baldwin refused to let it define his spirit. At 10, he pleaded to join the Knights' training, his small frame swathed in oversized armor borrowed from Sir Hugh, a veteran with a scarred face and a heart of gold. Hugh hesitated, his eyes tracing the boy's frail form, but Baldwin's persistence, his voice firm despite its childish lilt, won him over. On the dusty training ground, where heat shimmered off the sand and the clatter of wooden swords filled the air, Baldwin gripped his blade with surprising skill. His numb left arm, a challenge, was offset by a fierce determination, his right hand striking with precision. The knights, initially amused by the prince's tenacity, soon marveled as he outmaneuvered larger foes, his footwork a dance of will over weakness. "He fights like a lion cub," Hugh declared one evening, wiping sweat from his brow as the sun dipped low, a nickname that spread like wildfire through the barracks and into the city's taverns. The ecological context of the Crusader states was a harsh teacher, shaping Baldwin's early years. The land stretched from the sun-scorched deserts of Judea, where mirages danced on the horizon, to the fertile valleys of Galilee, watered by rare springs and dotted with olive groves. Survival demanded ingenuity. Water was hoarded in deep wells or stored in cisterns beneath fortified castles, guarded against raiders, while vineyards and orchards clung to life in the rocky soil. The population, a vibrant tapestry of Franks, local Christians, Muslims, and Jews, thrived on trade routes linking Damascus to the Mediterranean, their markets alive with the barter of spices, silks, and salt. Leprosy, thriving in the warm, crowded conditions of this war-torn region, posed a silent threat, its spread fueled by the close quarters of castles and caravans. Yet Baldwin's acceptance of his condition, riding openly despite his sores, fostered a unique unity. The people, witnessing his courage as he moved through the streets on a donkey, began to see him as a blessed soul, their prayers rising from the markets where vendors hawked dates, myrrh, and woven rugs. By 1174, Baldwin's life reached a dramatic crossroads. Amalric's sudden death from dysentery, a grim end in the humid palace chambers, left the throne vacant. The nobles, gathered in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, faced a dilemma: crown a leper boy or risk chaos. The ceremony was a spectacle of gold-threaded vestments and swirling incense. Baldwin's face partially veiled to conceal the sores now spreading across his cheeks. William of Tyre, elevated to Chancellor, stood beside him, his voice a steady guide, as the crown adorned with rubies and pearls was lowered onto Baldwin's head. The crowd's cheers carried a note of awe. Their new king, a 13-year-old, whose illness mirrored the kingdom's own fragility. In the days that followed, Baldwin rode out on a litter borne by loyal guards, his voice resolute as he vowed to shield Jerusalem, his words echoing through the dusty streets. Culturally, Baldwin's rise ignited a wave of admiration that rippled across the land. In the bustling markets of Acre, storytellers wove songs of the masked prince, their melodies a fusion of Latin hymns and Arabic rhythms, reflecting the kingdom's diverse soul. These tales, carried by traders to Antioch, Tripoli, and even the ports of Europe, portrayed Baldwin as a figure of divine will, his leprosy a badge of martyrdom. A merchant from Tyre, visiting the court, glimpsed Baldwin's veiled face and spread the story to his home port, where it grew into a legend of a king chosen by God. In Jerusalem's courtyards, children played at being the young lion, their laughter punctuating the clack of wooden swords, their games a playful echo of his early triumphs. The clergy, led by the Patriarch of Jerusalem, debated his rule. Some saw his leprosy as a divine sign, others as a liability, yet Baldwin's early decree to repair the city's aqueducts, ensuring water for all, won their tentative support. The palace buzzed with activity as Baldwin adjusted to his kingship. His days were consumed by council meetings, where nobles like Raymond of Tripoli offered counsel, their voices a blend of respect and caution. Baldwin listened intently, his numb fingers tracing the parchment maps of the kingdom, memorizing the strengths of Crac de Chevalier and the vulnerabilities of Ascalon. At night, he sought solace in the palace gardens, where the scent of night-blooming jasmine eased his aching limbs, and the stars above offered a quiet counsel. Servants, loyal but wary, adjusted his cushions, their whispers of concern lost to the young king's focus on the celestial expanse, dreaming of a Jerusalem that would endure. The common folk, learning of his condition through hushed rumors, gathered outside the palace gates, offering prayers and small gifts, loaves of bread, clusters of olives, and wilting flowers laid at the entrance as tokens of faith. A young girl, Amina, daughter of a spice merchant, placed a sprig of rosemary, whispering, "For the lion's strength." These acts of devotion grew into a movement, bolstering Baldwin's rule. The nobles, though divided, recognized his early wisdom, his order to reinforce the city's defenses and his negotiations with the assassins of Masyaf showcased a mind unclouded by his physical decline. A delegation from the assassins, cloaked in black, met Baldwin in a torchlit hall, their leader bowing slightly as the king, despite his litter, negotiated a truce, his voice steady and clear. As Baldwin's reign began, the kingdom faced mounting external pressures. Saladin, Nur ad-Din's successor, was consolidating power in Egypt and Syria, his armies a looming shadow on the horizon. Baldwin, though young, ordered patrols along the Jordan River. His litter carried to the front lines to inspect the defenses. The soldiers, seeing their king's resolve, stood taller, their loyalty deepening with each visit. In the villages, farmers whispered of the young lion as they tilled their fields, their hope tied to his survival. The palace gardens, where Baldwin often rested, became a place of quiet pilgrimage. The jasmine scent a balm for his sores, the stars a silent witness to his dreams of a united Jerusalem. One moonlit night, Baldwin summoned William to the garden, his voice soft but firm. "I will not be a king of weakness," he said, his numb hand clutching a rose. William nodded, his eyes moist. "Your strength is your will, my king," he replied, a moment that sealed their bond. The young king's early reign was marked by such resolve, his leprosy a challenge he met with grace. In the markets, a vendor named Omar, selling figs and almonds, overheard the palace guards speak of Baldwin's decree to widen the aqueducts, nodding in approval as he passed a coin to a beggar. "The lion cub grows strong," he murmured, a sentiment that spread among the people. Baldwin's days grew busier as he learned the intricacies of rule. He met with envoys from the Knights Templar, their white mantles a stark contrast to the palace's dim halls, discussing the fortification of Gaza. His voice, though strained, carried authority, his mind sharp despite the pain. The nobles, initially skeptical, began to see his potential, their counsels shifting from doubt to strategy. A young page, Elias, tasked with carrying Baldwin's maps, marveled at the king's focus, whispering to a friend, "He sees beyond his skin." These small moments built Baldwin's reputation, his early reign a testament to the strength found in vulnerability. As the months passed, Baldwin's health remained a silent battle. The sores spread to his legs, forcing greater reliance on his litter, yet he insisted on public appearances. During a feast in 1175, he stood briefly to address the nobles, his voice steady despite the pain, declaring, "I am your king, not my disease." The hall fell silent, then erupted in applause, a moment that solidified his authority. The young lion was growing into a leader, his reign a beacon of hope as the night deepened over Jerusalem. His story poised to echo through the ages. Baldwin's early reign was not without its trials, yet each challenge seemed to stoke the fire of his determination. The palace, with its high arches and cool stone floors, became a stage for his growing leadership. its walls echoing with the footsteps of advisors and the rustle of parchment. One morning, as the sun filtered through stained glass windows, casting colourful patterns across the hall, a delegation from the county of Tripoli arrived, led by Count Raymond. The nobles gathered around a long oak table, their voices a low hum as they debated the threat of Saladin's rising power. Baldwin, seated on a cushioned chair with his litter nearby, listened intently, his numb fingers tracing the edges of a map. When Raymond suggested a defensive pact, Baldwin nodded, his voice clear despite the strain. "We will stand together," he said, his words carrying a weight that silenced the room. The council, impressed by his foresight, began to see the boy king as more than his affliction. The ecological demands of the Crusader states continued to shape Baldwin's rule. The land's harsh beauty, deserts where the heat warped the air, valleys green with olive trees sustained by fragile springs, required constant vigilance. The aqueducts, ancient conduits of life, had fallen into disrepair under Amalric's later years, their cracked stones a threat to the city's water supply. Baldwin's decree to restore them was a bold move, mobilizing laborers from the villages. Under the blazing sun, men like Isaac, a farmer with sun-bleached hair, hauled stones and mortar, their sweat mingling with the dust. Isaac, whose fields depended on the aqueduct's flow, often paused to glance at Baldwin's litter, murmuring, "The lion ensures our drink." The project, completed by late 1175, brought water to parched households, earning Baldwin the gratitude of the common folk and strengthening his bond with them. Culturally, the young lion moniker took root deeper in the kingdom's soul. In the port of Jaffa, where the sea breeze carried the salt of the Mediterranean, sailors crafted shanties of the masked prince, their songs blending French refrains with Arabic flourishes, a melody that drifted to ships bound for Cyprus. A fisherman named Tariq, mending nets on the quay, hummed the tune, telling his son, "This king fights with his heart, not his hands." In Bethlehem, a painter named Elias began sketching Baldwin's profile, his sores veiled by a cloak, the image a blend of royalty and sanctity that adorned the walls of local chapels. These cultural expressions, born from awe, spread the legend, their rhythm soothing the land as the nights grew cooler. The nobles, though supportive, grappled with their own uncertainties. Raymond of Tripoli, a seasoned leader with a weathered face, often visited the palace, his advice tempered by caution. One evening, in the council chamber lit by flickering candelabras, he spoke of the need for a marriage alliance to secure the north. Baldwin, his litter adjusted by a servant, considered the proposal, his mind weaving a strategy. "A union with Antioch could hold us," he replied, his voice steady. The scribe, quill-scratching parchment, noted Baldwin's calm. Writing. The king's wisdom outshines his years. This moment marked a shift, the nobles beginning to trust his judgment, their skepticism fading into respect. Baldwin's public appearances grew more frequent, each a testament to his resolve. In the spring of 1176, he attended a festival in Hebron, his litter carried through crowds lining the streets with olive branches. The people cheered, their voices rising over the bleat of goats and the clatter of market stalls. A boy, Samuel, son of a shepherd, tossed a flower onto the litter, shouting. For the lion, Baldwin smiled, his veiled face turning toward the child, a gesture that won hearts. These outings, though exhausting, reinforced his image as a king of the people, his leprosy a shared burden rather than a barrier. The palace gardens remained his sanctuary, a place where the night air carried the jasmine's perfume and the stars offered silent counsel. One evening, as the moon cast silver light over the fig trees, Baldwin sat with William, discussing the kingdom's defences. A servant brought news of a raid near Jericho, and Baldwin, though weary, ordered a response, his mind ever alert. "We must protect the weak," he said, his voice soft but firm. William nodded, his eyes reflecting pride. The garden, with its rustling leaves and distant owl hoots, became a haven where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem took shape. The stars are witness to his growing strength. The kingdom's trade routes, vital to its survival, demanded attention. Baldwin met with merchants from Damascus, their caravans laden with silk and spices, in a hall adorned with tapestries of past crusades. The lead merchant, a man named Khalil with a silver beard, bowed slightly, offering a gift of saffron. Baldwin, from his litter, accepted it with a nod, negotiating safe passage for their goods in exchange for intelligence on Saladin's movements. "A fair trade," Khalil said, impressed by the young king's acumen. This deal, brokered with a steady hand, ensured the flow of goods, bolstering the economy and Baldwin's reputation. The young king's health, however, remained a constant shadow. The sores on his legs deepened, their edges red and inflamed, yet he masked his discomfort with a serene demeanor. During a visit to the Temple Mount, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of burning oil from votive lamps. A priest, Father Daniel, approached, offering a blessing, his voice trembling with reverence. "God has chosen you, my king," he whispered, a sentiment that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity in their eyes. As Baldwin's rule solidified, the palace became a center of learning and strategy. He invited scholars from the University of Paris, their robes a contrast to the local attire, to advise on fortifications. One scholar, Pierre, with a quill ever in hand, marveled at Baldwin's questions about Roman aqueducts, noting, "This boy thinks like an emperor." These sessions, held in a chamber with walls lined with maps, sharpened Baldwin's mind, his leprosy a backdrop to his growing wisdom. The nobles, witnessing his intellect, began to rally, their councils now focused on unity rather than division. The villages, too, felt Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Bethany, a farmer named Rachel, whose well had dried, received water from the restored aqueducts, her gratitude spilling into a song she sang to her children. "The lion brings life." This song, simple yet powerful, spread to neighboring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its olive groves swaying in the breeze and its deserts humming with silence, began to reflect Baldwin's early reign, a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit outshone his scars. My apologies for the mix-up. I'll stick to sending only the new segments moving forward. Here's the next continuation for Part 1, The Rise of the Leper King. Building on the previous content, with fresh details to push toward or maintain the 5,000-word target. This segment will focus on further expanding Baldwin's early reign with new anecdotes, cultural depth, and soothing narration. The winter of 1176-1177 brought a rare stillness to Jerusalem. The air crisp with the scent of pine brought from the hills and the faint crackle of hearths warming the palace. Baldwin, now 14, found his days increasingly occupied by the weight of kingship. Yet his spirit remained unbroken. One snowy morning, as flakes dusted the courtyard, he summoned a group of engineers from the Order of St. John to discuss expanding the city's defenses. The chamber, warmed by a roaring fire, echoed with the clink of metal tools as the engineers unrolled plans for a new outer wall. Baldwin, his litter positioned near a brazier, leaned forward, his numb fingers tracing the sketches. "We must protect the weak," he insisted, his voice steady despite the cold seeping into his bones. The engineers, impressed by his foresight, nodded, their pencils sketching amendments, a testament to the young king's growing command. The ecological resilience of the Crusader states demanded constant adaptation, and Baldwin's early policies reflected this. The winter rains, though scarce, filled the restored aqueducts, their waters glinting like silver threads through the city. Labourers, wrapped in woolen cloaks, worked to clear debris from the channels, their breath visible in the chill. Among them was a water carrier named Eli, whose family had suffered from drought. As he hauled buckets, he glanced at Baldwin's litter passing by, murmuring, "The lion turns rain to life." This praise spread among the workers, the aqueducts becoming a symbol of Baldwin's care, their flow a lifeline that eased the harshness of the season. Culturally, the young lion legend blossomed with new tales. In the coastal town of Caesarea, where the sea's roar mingled with the creak of fishing boats, a bard named Yusuf composed a ballad of the veiled shepherd, likening Baldwin to a leader guiding his flock through storm. The song, sung over the clatter of nets, reached ships bound for Italy, its melody a soothing refrain that carried his fame westward. In Jerusalem, a weaver named Sarah began stitching a tapestry of the lion's first reign, her threads depicting Baldwin on his litter overseeing the aqueducts, the image destined for the palace walls. These cultural expressions, born from reverence, enriched the kingdom's narrative, their rhythm a lullaby as the snow settled over the land. The nobles' support grew steadier, their counsels a blend of strategy and admiration. One evening, as a blizzard howled outside, Count Baldwin of Ibelin joined the council, his cloak dusted with snow. The chamber, lit by oil lamps, warmed with the scent of mulled wine as he proposed a treaty with the Principality of Antioch. Baldwin, his litter near the hearth, considered the offer, his voice clear. "Peace with Antioch strengthens us against Saladin," he said, his eyes meeting Ibelin's. The count nodded, and the pact was drafted, the scribe's quill scratching a historic agreement. This alliance, forged in winter's grip, showcased Baldwin's diplomatic maturity, his leprosy a secondary concern to his wisdom. Baldwin's public life continued to inspire. In early 1177, he attended a midwinter feast in Bethlehem. His litter carried through snow-dusted streets. The people lined the paths, their breath visible, offering bundles of dried figs and woolen scarves. A shepherd named David, his flock bleating nearby, placed a lamb's fleece on the litter, saying, "For the lion's warmth." Baldwin's nod, though hidden, warmed the crowd, his presence a beacon in the cold. These outings, though draining, reinforced his bond with the peasantry, his illness a shared struggle that united them. The palace gardens, now dusted with snow, remained Baldwin's retreat, under a canopy of bare branches, where the night air carried the faint scent of frozen jasmine. He sat with William. One night, a scout reported Saladin's scouts near the Jordan, and Baldwin, though fatigued, ordered a watch, his mind ever alert. "We guard our borders," he said, his voice soft but resolute. The garden, with its crunch of snow and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a lasting Jerusalem took root. The constellations a silent promise of his growing legacy, trade routes, vital to the kingdom's recovery, drew Baldwin's focus. He met with a silk merchant from Baghdad, a man named Amir with a voice like velvet, in a hall adorned with cedar panels. The air was rich with the scent of silk and sandalwood, as Amir presented a bolt of crimson fabric. Baldwin, from his litter, accepted it, negotiating safe passage for the caravan in exchange for news of Saladin's plans. "A king of wisdom," Amir said, bowing, impressed by the young ruler's acumen. This deal, sealed with a nod, ensured the flow of luxury goods, bolstering the economy and Baldwin's reputation among traders. Baldwin's health, a persistent shadow, tested his limits. The sores on his legs worsened, their edges raw in the cold, yet he masked his discomfort with a serene facade. During a visit to the citadel of David, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and incense. A monk, Brother Paul, approached, offering a relic, his voice trembling with awe. "God's chosen endures," he whispered, a belief that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity. The palace became a beacon of learning as Baldwin's reign progressed. He invited a physician from Salerno, a man named Guido with a satchel of herbs, to study his condition. The chamber, lit by a single candle, filled with the scent of mint as Guido examined Baldwin, noting the sore's progression. "Your will is your medicine," Guido said, prescribing warm baths to ease the pain. These sessions, though futile against leprosy, sharpened Baldwin's understanding of his body, his mind a fortress against despair. The nobles, witnessing his curiosity, rallied further, their councils now focused on progress. The villages reflected Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Hebron, a vintner named Jacob, whose vines had withered, received water from the aqueducts, his gratitude spilling into a toast he raised to his family. To the lion's gift. This gesture, simple yet profound, spread to neighboring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its snow-dusted groves and silent deserts, began to pulse with the vitality of a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit defied his scars. Baldwin's interactions with the kingdom's diversity enriched his rule. He met with a delegation of Armenian merchants near the Mount of Olives, their robes bright with embroidery, to secure their trade. The air was cool, the ground soft with frost, as the lead merchant, Aram, offered a carved cross. Baldwin, from his litter, accepted it, promising protection for their caravans. "A king who honors all is a king of peace," Aram said, his nod sealing an alliance. This pact, brokered with a steady hand, extended Baldwin's influence into the eastern communities, their loyalty a new pillar for the kingdom. The young king's reputation soared with each act of leadership. In the spring of 1177, he oversaw the planting of new olive trees near Jericho, the air fragrant with damp earth. Families lined the fields, their hands planting saplings, their voices rising in song. A grandmother, holding a child, offered a seedling to the litter, saying, "For the lion's shade." Baldwin's gesture of acceptance, though hidden, warmed the crowd, his presence a seed of hope in their renewal. These acts, woven into the fabric of the land, strengthened his bond with the people, his leprosy a shared journey rather than a divide. The palace gardens, now a winter haven, deepened Baldwin's resolve. Under the stars, where the night air carried the faint scent of frost-kissed jasmine, he sat with William, planning the kingdom's future. One night, a messenger reported a Saladin advance near Gaza, and Baldwin, though weary, ordered reinforcements, his mind ever vigilant. "We stand as one," he said, his voice soft but resolute. The garden, with its crunch of snow and celestial canopy, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a lasting Jerusalem flourished, the stars a silent witness to his growing legacy. The winter of 1177 blankets Jerusalem in a rare hush, the air crisp with the scent of snow-dusted pines carried from the hills and the faint crackle of fires warming the palace hearths. Baldwin, now 15, finds his days steeped in the growing weight of kingship, his spirit a steady flame against the cold. One frosty morning, as delicate flakes drift over the courtyard, he convenes a meeting with architects from the Order of the Hospital to plan an expansion of the city's granaries. The chamber, aglow with the soft light of oil lamps, hums with the rustle of blueprints as the architects lay out designs for sturdier storage. Baldwin, his litter positioned near a brazier, leans forward, his numb fingers brushing the parchment. "We must feed the people," he he insists, his voice resolute despite the chill seeping into his bones. The architects, moved by his concern, nod, their pencils sketching enhancements, a tribute to the young king's foresight. The ecological demands of the Crusader states pressed ever harder, and Baldwin's policies adapted with ingenuity. The winter snows, though light, replenished the aqueducts, their waters shimmering like liquid silver through the city. Workers, bundled in thick cloaks, cleared ice from the channels, their breath fogging in the cold. Among them was a miller named Daniel, whose family had starved during a past drought. As he laboured, he caught sight of Baldwin's litter passing by, murmuring to a fellow worker, "The lion stores our bread." This praise rippled through the labour crews, the granaries becoming a symbol of Baldwin's care, their filled silos a bulwark against future hardship in the frosty season. Culturally, the young lion legend flourished with fresh vigour. In the port of Tyre, where the sea's rhythm mingled with the creak of shipyards, a poet named Ibrahim crafted a verse of the veiled guardian, likening Baldwin to a shepherd shielding his flock from famine. The poem, recited over the clatter of ship repairs, reached vessels bound for Constantinople, its cadence a soothing echo that carried his fame eastward. In Jerusalem, a glassblower named Reuben began shaping a chalice etched with the lion's promise, its surface depicting Baldwin overseeing the granaries, the piece destined for the cathedral's altar. These cultural expressions, born from admiration, wove a richer narrative. Their artistry a lullaby as the snow settled over the land, the nobles' allegiance deepened, their counsels a blend of strategy and awe. One evening, as a blizzard raged outside, casting shadows across the palace walls, Count Baldwin of Ramla joined the council, his cloak heavy with snow, the chamber warmed by a roaring fire, filled with the aroma of spiced wine as he proposed reinforcing the southern borders. Baldwin, his litter near the hearth, considered the suggestion, his voice steady. "We will build a line at Ascalon," he said, his eyes meeting Ramla's. The count agreed, and the plan was set, the scribe's quill etching a defensive strategy. This decision, forged in winter's embrace, showcased Baldwin's tactical growth, his leprosy a distant note to his leadership. Baldwin's public engagements continued to uplift. In early 1178, he attended a midwinter blessing in Hebron. His litter carried through snow-dusted streets. The people lined the paths, their breath visible, offering bundles of dried dates and woven mats. A vintner named Esther, her hands stained with grape juice, placed a small cask of wine on the litter, saying, "For the lion's health." Baldwin's nod, though hidden, warmed the crowd, his presence a light in the cold. These outings, though exhausting, solidified his bond with the peasantry, his illness a shared burden that united them. The palace gardens, now cloaked in a blanket of snow, remained Baldwin's sanctuary. Under a canopy of bare branches, where the night air carried the faint scent of frozen earth, he sat with William. One night, a scout reported Saladin's forces probing near Jaffa, and Baldwin, though fatigued, ordered a watch, his mind ever alert. "We guard our coast," he said, his voice soft but resolute. The garden, with its crunch of snow and starlit expanse, became a haven where Baldwin's visions of a lasting Jerusalem took root, the constellations a silent promise of his evolving legacy. Trade routes, crucial to the kingdom's recovery, drew Baldwin's focus. He met with a spice trader from Aleppo, a woman named Fatima with a voice like silk, in a hall adorned with ivory panels. The air was rich with the scent of cinnamon and cloves as she presented a sack of saffron. Baldwin, from his litter, accepted it, negotiating safe passage for her caravan in exchange for intelligence on Saladin's supply lines. "A king of insight," Fatima said, bowing, impressed by the young ruler's acumen. This deal, sealed with a nod, ensured the flow of exotic goods, bolstering the economy and Baldwin's reputation among traders. Baldwin's health, a persistent challenge, tested his endurance. The sores on his legs deepened, their edges raw in the cold, yet he masked his discomfort with a serene facade. During a visit to the Tower of David, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and incense. A nun, Sister Mary, approached, offering a prayer bead, her voice trembling with awe. "God's chosen suffers for us," she whispered, a belief that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity. The palace became a center of innovation as Baldwin's reign progressed. He invited a mathematician from Cordoba, a man named Ibrahim with a keen eye, to design irrigation channels for the southern fields. The chamber, lit by a single lantern, filled with the scent of ink as Ibrahim unrolled plans. "Your waters will flow like rivers," he said, sketching enhancements. These sessions, though taxing, sharpened Baldwin's understanding of his land, his mind a beacon against despair. The nobles, witnessing his curiosity, rallied further, their councils now focused on growth. The villages mirrored Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Jericho, a weaver named Hannah, whose loom had been idle, received wool from the restored trade routes. Her gratitude spilling into a pattern, she wove a lion amid vines. This design, simple yet evocative, spread to neighboring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its snow-dusted groves and silent deserts, began to thrum with the vitality of a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit defied his scars. Baldwin's engagement with the kingdom's diversity enriched his rule. He met with a delegation of Coptic Christians near the Jordan River, their robes bright with gold thread, to secure their support. The air was cold, the ground dusted with frost, as the elder, a man named Isaac, offered a carved icon. Baldwin, from his litter, accepted it, promising protection for their villages. "A king who honors faith is a king of all," Isaac said, his nod sealing an alliance. This pact, brokered with a steady hand, extended Baldwin's influence into the eastern communities, their loyalty a new foundation for the kingdom. The young king's reputation soared with each act of leadership. In the spring of 1178, he oversaw the distribution of seed grain to famine-stricken villages near Gaza, the air fragrant with damp earth. Families lined the fields, their hands planting seeds, their voices rising in song. A father, holding a daughter, offered a handful of wheat to the litter, saying, "For the lion's harvest." Baldwin's gesture of acceptance, though hidden, warmed the crowd, his presence a seed of hope in their renewal. These acts, woven into the fabric of the land, strengthened his bond with the people. His leprosy, a shared journey rather than a divide. The palace gardens, now a winter haven, deepened Baldwin's resolve. Under the stars, where the night air carried the faint scent of frost-kissed jasmine, he sat with William, planning the kingdom's future. One night, a messenger reported a Saladin raid near Ascalon, and Baldwin, though weary, ordered a counter-move, his mind ever vigilant. "We stand as one," he said, his voice soft but resolute. The garden, with its crunch of snow and celestial canopy, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a lasting Jerusalem flourished, the stars a silent witness to his growing legacy. Battles and resilience. The year is 1177, and a searing wind whips across the sun-scorched plains south of Jerusalem. Carrying the thunderous rumble of hooves and the acrid sting of dust as war looms on the horizon, King Baldwin IV, now 16, stands at the forefront of a desperate stand against Saladin, the mighty Muslim leader whose vast army threatens to shatter the Crusader states. His body, ravaged by leprosy hands twisted, face, half veiled beneath a cloth, trembles on a litter, yet his voice cuts through the chaos, rallying knights with a defiant cry of God wills it against all odds. This young king, born by a fragile frame, will lead a stunning victory at Montgisard, a triumph that defies his affliction. For the next 30 minutes, let my soothing voice carry you through Baldwin's battles and unyielding spirit, a story crafted to lull you into restful sleep. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and immerse yourself in a tale of valor etched in the sands of history. The Holy Land in 1177 was a battlefield of faith and ambition. Its landscape a harsh tapestry of rolling dunes and sparse oases, where the Crusader kingdoms clung to existence under the shadow of Saladin's rising power. Jerusalem, the jewel at its center, remained a beacon of Christian hope, its walls scarred by past sieges, its markets alive with the scent of olives and the murmur of prayers. Baldwin IV, ascended to the throne 3 years prior, had grown into a king whose leprosy marked him as both vulnerable and extraordinary. The disease, now evident in his gnarled hands, and the cloth that often covered his face, had progressed. Yet his mind remained sharp, his will a fortress against despair. The kingdom, a fragile alliance of Frankish lords, local Christians, and uneasy truces with Muslim neighbours, faced a dire threat as Saladin, having united Egypt and Syria, marched northward with an army numbering in the thousands. The Battle of Montgisard, fought on November 25th, 1177, was a crucible that would define Baldwin's reign. Saladin, confident in his overwhelming force, advanced toward Jerusalem, his scouts reporting the Crusader army as a mere shadow, less than 500 knights and a few thousand infantry, many untested. Baldwin, informed by spies, gathered his forces at Ascalon, his litter carried to the front lines despite the protests of his physicians. The air was thick with the dust of marching feet and the metallic tang of armor, the sun beating down as he surveyed the terrain. Sir Geoffrey, a grizzled knight with a scarred jaw, stood beside him, adjusting the litter's canopy. "Sire, the odds are against us," Geoffrey warned, his voice low. Baldwin's eyes, bright with resolve, met his. "God has brought us this far," he replied, his voice steady, "and he will see us through." This faith, unshaken by his condition, ignited a fire in the troops. The battle began at dawn, the horizon ablaze with the glint of Saladin's spears. Baldwin, supported by his litter and surrounded by the Knights Templar, led the charge, his horse guided by a loyal squire. The clash was ferocious. Swords clanged, arrows whistled, and the cries of the wounded rose above the din. Baldwin's leprosy limited his physical strength, his numb arms struggling to hold the reins, yet his strategic mind shone. He ordered a feigned retreat, luring Saladin's forces into a narrow valley where the terrain favored the smaller Crusader army. As the Muslim cavalry pursued, Baldwin signaled the Templars to wheel back, their disciplined charge cutting through the enemy flank. The air filled with the scent of blood and sweat, the ground trembling under the horses' hooves, until Saladin's army broke, fleeing in disarray. The victory was staggering. Saladin, forced to retreat with heavy losses, acknowledged Baldwin's prowess, sending a message of respect that reached the palace days later. Sir Geoffrey, wiping blood from his sword, knelt before the litter, his voice thick with emotion. "You've turned defeat into glory, sire." Baldwin, his face pale beneath the veil, managed a weak smile. "It was God's will," he murmured, his body trembling from the effort. The soldiers, their armor dented and spirits high, chanted Deus Vult as they returned to Jerusalem, their young king borne triumphantly on his litter. The city's gates opened wide, the people lining the streets with olive branches, their cheers a thunderous welcome for the Lion of Montgisard. The societal response was a mix of awe and unease. The nobles, gathered in the palace hall, debated the victory's implications. Raymond of Tripoli, his voice measured, praised Baldwin's tactics, but cautioned. His health may not endure another such fight. Others, like Count Baldwin of Ibelin, countered. His spirit is our shield, leprosy be damned. The common folk, however, saw a miracle, their prayers rising from the markets where vendors sold bread and flowers in his honour. A baker named Miriam, kneading dough, whispered to a customer. The lion cub has roared, her words spreading like yeast through the city. This duality admiration tempered by fear shaped Baldwin's reign, his victory a double-edged sword. Culturally, Montgisard fueled a wave of inspiration. In Jaffa, minstrels composed ballads of the littered lion, their songs blending French refrains with Arabic flourishes, carried by ships to Europe where they reached the courts of France. A sailor named Paolo, repairing a mast, sang of the king who struck from weakness, his voice a soothing cadence over the waves. In Jerusalem, a scribe named Thomas penned a chronicle, detailing Baldwin's charge, the text illuminated with gold leaf and distributed to monasteries. These cultural threads, born from awe, spread his fame, their rhythm a lullaby as the nights grew warmer. The ecological aftermath of the battle left its mark. The valley, strewn with broken spears and trampled grass, became a somber reminder, its silence broken only by the wind. The Crusaders scavenged what they could water from a nearby spring, abandoned supplies sustaining their return march. Baldwin, resting in his litter, ordered the wounded cared for, his compassion extending to the enemy fallen. The land, harsh yet resilient, mirrored his own struggle, its recovery a parallel to his reign. Baldwin's resilience shone in the weeks that followed. Despite the physical toll, his legs now too weak to stand without support, he insisted on reviewing the troops. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, casting a golden sheen over the training ground, he addressed the knights, his voice hoarse but firm. "We fight not for glory, but for our home," he said, his litter carried among them. The men, their armour still bearing battle scars, saluted, their loyalty cemented by his courage. A young squire, Michel, whispered to a comrade, "He's more than a king, he's our soul," a sentiment that echoed through the ranks. The palace became a place of reflection after Montgisard. Baldwin, resting in the gardens, where the scent of late-blooming roses mingled with the evening air, met with William, the scholar, his face lined with concern, noted the king's pallor. "Your body weakens, but your mind grows," William said, offering a scroll of Roman tactics. Baldwin, his numb hand tracing the text, nodded. "Then my mind will lead," he replied, a resolve that shaped his future strategies. The garden, with its rustling leaves and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem took flight. The constellations a silent witness to his growing legacy. Saladin's respect added a new layer to Baldwin's reputation. An envoy, cloaked in green, arrived with a gift of fine Damascus steel, a gesture of truce. Baldwin, from his litter in the throne room, accepted it, his voice calm. "Let this be a bridge, not a blade," he said, negotiating a temporary ceasefire. The envoy bowed, impressed, and the pact was recorded, a diplomatic triumph that eased the kingdom's borders. This moment, lit by the glow of torches, showcased Baldwin's ability to turn victory into peace, his leprosy a backdrop to his wisdom. The cultural impact rippled outward. In Acre, a merchant named Yusuf commissioned a mural of Montgisard, its walls depicting Baldwin's charge, the sores on his arms veiled by a banner. The image, blessed by a priest, drew pilgrims, their prayers a soft hum. In the villages, mothers told their children of the littered lion, their stories a bedtime ritual. the tale's rhythm soothing the land as the stars emerged over Jerusalem. The winter of 1178 settles over the Holy Land, a quiet veil of frost draping the plains south of Jerusalem, where the faint whistle of wind through the dunes carries echoes of the recent clash at Montgisard. King Baldwin III, now 17, rests within the palace walls, his body bearing the scars of leprosy, hands twisted, face half veiled, yet his spirit burns brighter after the stunning victory. The air hums with the soft tread of knights returning from patrol and the distant murmur of prayers, as Saladin's shadow looms once more, testing the young king's resilience. For this next stretch of our 30-minute journey, let my soothing voice guide you through Baldwin's continued battles and unyielding courage, a tale crafted to ease you into restful sleep. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and immerse yourself in a story of valor etched into the rugged heart of the Crusader states. The aftermath of Montgisard left the kingdom in a fragile state of triumph, its lands a mosaic of recovery and readiness. Jerusalem, its walls still echoing with the cheers of victory, stood as a beacon amid the arid expanse, its markets fragrant with the spice of cumin and the tang of freshly baked bread. Baldwin, though hailed as a hero, felt the weight of his condition more acutely. His legs, now too weak to bear him without support, forced greater reliance on his litter, while the sores on his arms deepened, their edges raw against the cold. Yet his mind remained a fortress, his resolve unshaken as he prepared for the inevitable return of Saladin. The palace, with its cool stone corridors and the soft drip of winter rain from the courtyards, became a hub of strategy, its halls filled with the rustle of maps and the murmur of advisors. The next challenge came swiftly. In early 1178, Saladin, undeterred by Montgisard, launched a probing attack on the fortress of Durham, near the Egyptian border. Baldwin, informed by a breathless scout, gathered his forces despite the physician's pleas for rest. The journey to Durham was grueling. His litter jolted over rocky paths, the air thick with the dust of the desert and the scent of camel dung from passing caravans. Sir Geoffrey, ever at his side, adjusted the canopy, his voice low. "Sire, the men are weary. Will you risk another charge?" Baldwin's eyes, bright with determination, met his. "We defend what is ours," he replied, his voice a quiet steel. The troops, seeing their king's commitment, rallied, their armor clanking as they formed ranks under a grey sky. The skirmish at Durham was a tense standoff. Saladin's forces, numbering a few hundred, tested the fortress's defenses, their arrows arcing through the air like dark streaks. Baldwin, positioned on a hill overlooking the battle, directed the defense from his litter, his numb hands clutching a crude map. He ordered the archers to concentrate fire on the enemy's left flank, a tactic that forced Saladin's men to retreat, their retreat a cloud of dust against the horizon. The victory was minor but significant, preserving the southern border and boosting morale. As the sun dipped, casting a rosy glow over the fortress, Geoffrey knelt beside the litter, his face etched with relief. "You've turned the tide again, sire," he said, his voice thick with pride. Baldwin, his breath laboured, managed a nod, his body trembling from the effort. The societal response to Durham was a mix of reverence and concern. The nobles, gathered in the palace hall, debated the king's health. Raymond of Tripoli, his voice measured, cautioned. "Each battle weakens him, we must seek a regent." Count Baldwin of Ibelin, however, countered. "His will is our strength. Leprosy cannot dim his light." The common folk, hearing of the victory, saw a miracle, their prayers rising from the markets where a potter named Ruth shaped clay, murmuring, "The lion guards our south." This duality, admiration tempered by fear, continued to shape Baldwin's reign, his resilience a double-edged blade that both inspired and worried his people. Culturally, Durham fueled new expressions of admiration. In Hebron, A storyteller named Ibrahim crafted a tale of the littered sentinel, his Arabic narrative depicting Baldwin directing the archers, the sores on his arms veiled by a banner of light. The story, shared around evening fires, reached pilgrims bound for Mecca, its cadence a soothing echo. In Jerusalem, a jeweler named Solomon began crafting a pendant of a lion holding a shield, its surface etched with the date of Dharam, the piece destined for the king's treasury. These cultural threads, born from awe, spread his fame, their rhythm a lullaby as the winter nights lengthened. The ecological toll of these campaigns left its mark. The plains around Dharam, trampled by hooves and littered with broken arrows, became a somber landscape, its silence broken only by the wind. The Crusaders scavenged what they could water from a brackish spring, abandoned shields sustaining their return. Baldwin, resting in his litter, ordered the wounded tended, his compassion extending even to captured foes. The land, harsh yet enduring, mirrored his own struggle, its recovery a parallel to his reign. Baldwin's resilience shone in the spring of 1179. Despite the physical toll his legs now requiring constant support, he insisted on inspecting the northern defences near Tyre. One morning, as the sun warmed the stone walls, he addressed the garrison, his voice hoarse but firm. "We stand as a shield for the north," he said, his litter carried among the soldiers. The men, their swords still bearing rust from winter, saluted, their loyalty deepened by his presence. A young archer, Thomas, whispered to a comrade, "He's our rock." A sentiment that echoed through the ranks. The palace became a place of quiet strategy after Dharam. Baldwin, resting in the gardens where the scent of early blooming roses mingled with the damp earth, met with William. The scholar, his face lined with worry, noted the king's pallor. "Your body tires, but your soul endures," William said, offering a treatise on siegecraft. Baldwin, his numb hand tracing the text, nodded. "Then my soul will lead," he replied, a resolve that shaped his future plans. The garden, with its rustling leaves and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem took flight. The constellations a silent witness to his growing legacy. Saladin's respect grew, adding a new dimension to Baldwin's reputation. An envoy, cloaked in indigo, arrived with a gift of embroidered silk, a gesture of temporary peace. Baldwin, from his litter in the throne room, accepted it, his voice calm. "Let this be a bond, not a barrier," he said, negotiating a ceasefire to allow rebuilding. The envoy bowed, impressed, and the pact was recorded, a diplomatic victory that eased the southern pressure. This moment, lit by the glow of braziers, showcased Baldwin's ability to turn resilience into reconciliation, his leprosy a backdrop to his wisdom. The cultural impact rippled further. In Jaffa, a merchant named Leper commissioned a tapestry of Dharam, its threads depicting Baldwin's strategic gaze, the sores on his legs veiled by a cloak of gold. The artwork, blessed by a priest, drew visitors, their prayers a soft hum. In the villages, fathers told their sons of the littered sentinel, their stories a bedtime tale. The narrative's rhythm soothing the land as the stars emerged over Jerusalem. Baldwin's health, a persistent shadow, demanded new strategies. The sores on his back worsened, their edges inflamed in the damp, and his physicians suggested warm compresses of lavender. During a visit to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of myrrh and wax. A deacon, Father Simon, approached, offering a relic, his voice trembling with awe. "God's chosen stands firm," he whispered, a belief that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity. The palace grew into a center of resilience as Baldwin's reign progressed. He invited a strategist from Venice, a man named Marco with a map-strewn cloak, to plan coastal defenses. The chamber, lit by a single lantern, filled with the scent of salt as Marco unrolled charts. "Your ports must hold," he said, sketching fortifications. These sessions, though draining, sharpened Baldwin's tactical mind, his leprosy a secondary note to his leadership. The nobles, witnessing his vision, rallied further, their councils now focused on strength. The villages reflected Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Gaza, a fisherman named Amos, whose nets had been idle, received timber from the restored trade routes, his gratitude spilling into a net he mended a lion woven in knots. This design, simple yet striking, spread to neighboring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its frost-dusted plains and silent oases, began to pulse with the vitality of a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit defied his scars. The spring of 1179 ushers in a gentle warmth across the Holy Land, the air alive with the soft hum of bees among the wildflowers and the distant clatter of hooves as patrols resume their vigilance. King Baldwin IV, now 18, sits within the palace walls, his body etched with the deepening marks of leprosy legs, too frail to stand. Hands twisted, yet his resolve burns fiercer than ever after the trials of Durham. The scent of blooming thyme drifts through the open windows, mingling with the murmur of strategists plotting the next move against Saladin's persistent threat. For this next stretch of our 30-minute journey, let my soothing voice guide you through Baldwin's ongoing battles and steadfast courage, a narrative crafted to ease you into restful sleep. The kingdom, buoyed by the successes at Montgazard and Durham, faced a new test as spring awakened the land. Jerusalem, its stones warmed by the sun, pulsed with a cautious optimism, its markets fragrant with the spice of coriander and the tang of freshly cured leather. Baldwin, though hailed as a warrior king, felt the relentless advance of his illness. His back now bore sores that wept in the heat. His vision blurred at times, yet his mind remained a beacon of clarity. The palace, with its cool corridors and the gentle splash of courtyard fountains, became a nerve center, its halls filled with the rustle of battle plans and the soft tread of messengers bearing news from the frontiers. The next confrontation loomed in May 1179, when Saladin launched a bold assault on the fortress of Jacob's Ford, a strategic stronghold on the Jordan River. Baldwin, alerted by a scout whose horse arrived lathered with sweat, rallied his forces despite the physician's warnings. The journey was arduous, his litter rocked over rugged paths, the air thick with the dust of the plains and the scent of sagebrush from the hills. Sir Geoffrey, his armor dented from past battles, adjusted the litter's frame, his voice gruff. "Sire, your strength wanes. Let us handle this." Baldwin's gaze, sharp despite his fatigue, met his. "I lead, or we fall," he replied, his voice a quiet command. The troops, seeing their king's determination, steeled themselves, their shields clanking as they marched under a sky streaked with clouds. The battle at Jacob's Ford was a tense struggle. Saladin's forces, numbering over 1,000, besieged the fortress, their catapults hurling stones that shattered the walls. Baldwin, positioned on a rise overlooking the fray, directed the defense from his litter, his numb hands clutching a crude battle plan. He ordered the archers to target the siege engines, a tactic that disrupted Saladin's advance, while the knights launched a countercharge to relieve the garrison, the air filled with the crash of falling masonry and the cries of the wounded, the ground trembling under the weight of war. As dusk fell, casting a purple hue over the battlefield, Saladin's army withdrew, their retreat a testament to Baldwin's strategic mind. Geoffrey, wiping blood from his brow, knelt beside the litter, his voice hoarse. "You've saved us again, sire," he said, his eyes reflecting awe. Baldwin, his breath shallow, nodded, his body trembling from the strain. The societal response was a blend of triumph and trepidation. The nobles, convened in the palace hall, debated the king's endurance, Raymond of Tripoli, his tone cautious, urged. His victories cost him dearly. We need a regent soon. Count Baldwin of Ibelin, however, argued. His spirit is our fortress. Leprosy cannot break him. The common folk, learning of the victory, saw divine favour, their prayers rising from the markets where a blacksmith named Jacob forged nails, murmuring, "The lion holds the ford." This duality admiration laced with fear continued to define Baldwin's reign, his resilience a beacon amid growing concerns. Culturally, Jacob's Ford inspired new tributes. In Galilee, a bard named Eli crafted a song of the littered warden, his Hebrew verses depicting Baldwin directing the archers, the sores on his back veiled by a mantle of stars. The ballad, sung around village fires, reached pilgrims bound for Damascus, its melody a soothing refrain. In Jerusalem, a potter named Rebecca shaped a jug etched with the lion's stand, its surface showing Baldwin's litter against the ford, the piece destined for the palace kitchens. These cultural threads, born from reverence, spread his fame. Their rhythm a lullaby as the spring nights lengthened, the ecological aftermath left a scarred but resilient landscape. The ford, its banks littered with broken arrows and splintered wood, became a somber memorial, its waters running red with the day's toll. The Crusaders salvaged what they could water from the river, discarded shields sustaining their retreat. Baldwin, resting in his litter, ordered the wounded cared for, his compassion extending to a captured scout who was spared. The land, rugged yet enduring, mirrored his own tenacity, its recovery a parallel to his reign. Baldwin's resilience glowed in the summer of 1179. Despite the physical toll, his arms now too weak to lift a sword without aid, he insisted on visiting the rebuilt fortress. One afternoon, as the sun cast a golden light over the stone walls, he addressed the garrison, his voice frail but firm. "We stand as one against the storm," he said, his litter carried among the soldiers. The men, their armour polished from the recent fight, saluted, their loyalty deepened by his presence. A young pikeman, Daniel, whispered to a friend. "He's our anchor," a sentiment that echoed through the ranks. The palace became a haven of strategy after Jacob's Ford. Baldwin, resting in the gardens where the scent of early summer roses mingled with the damp earth, met with William. The scholar, his face etched with concern, noted the king's pallor. "Your body fades, but your heart endures," William said, offering a scroll of Byzantine tactics. Baldwin, his numb hand tracing the text, nodded. "Then my heart will lead," he replied, a resolve that shaped his future defences. The garden, with its rustling leaves and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem took flight. The constellations, a silent witness to his growing legacy. Saladin's respect deepened, adding a layer to Baldwin's stature. An envoy, cloaked in crimson, arrived with a gift of ornate daggers, a gesture of reluctant admiration. Baldwin, from his litter in the throne room, accepted them, his voice calm. "Let this be a pause, not an end," he said, negotiating a brief truce to rebuild. The envoy bowed, impressed, and the pact was recorded, a diplomatic triumph that eased the eastern pressure. This moment, lit by the glow of torches, showcased Baldwin's ability to turn resilience into diplomacy, his leprosy a backdrop to his wisdom. The cultural impact rippled wider. In Tyre, a merchant named Hassan commissioned a scroll of Jacob's Ford, its ink depicting Baldwin's strategic gaze, the sores on his legs veiled by a cloak of silver. The artwork, blessed by a priest, drew traders, their prayers a soft hum. In the villages, mothers told their daughters of the littered warden, their stories a bedtime ritual, the narrative's rhythm soothing the land as the stars emerged over Jerusalem. Baldwin's health, a relentless foe, demanded new care. The sores on his chest worsened, their edges inflamed in the heat, and his physicians suggested compresses of chamomile. During a visit to the Church of St. Anne, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of incense and stone. A lay brother, Father Joseph, approached, offering a vial of holy water, his voice trembling with awe. "God's chosen bears our burdens," he whispered, a belief that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity. The palace evolved into a centre of endurance as Baldwin's reign progressed. He invited a cartographer from Genoa, a man named Pietro with a weathered map case, to chart the kingdom's borders. The chamber, lit by a single candle, filled with the scent of parchment as Pietro unrolled surveys. "Your lands must be known," he said, sketching new routes. These sessions, though exhausting, sharpened Baldwin's grasp of his realm. His leprosy, a secondary note to his leadership. The nobles, witnessing his vision, rallied further, their councils now focused on survival. The villages mirrored Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Hebron, a shepherd named Amos, whose flock had dwindled, received wool from the restored trade routes, his gratitude spilling into a fleece he dyed a lion in gold. This pattern, striking and bold, spread to neighbouring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its spring-blooming plains and silent wadis, began to pulse with the vitality of a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit defied his scars. The summer of 1179 bathes the Holy Land in a golden haze, the air alive with the gentle buzz of cicadas among the olive groves and the soft clop of horses patrolling the plains. A land poised between recovery and renewed threat. King Baldwin IV, now 19, resides within the palace walls, his body marked by the relentless advance of leprosy legs, too frail to support him. Hands gnarled, yet his spirit stands as a pillar of strength after the trials at Jacob's Ford. The scent of sun-warmed thyme drifts through the open arches, mingling with the hushed voices of strategists, plotting against Saladin's next move. For this next stretch of our 30-minute journey, let my soothing voice guide you through Baldwin's ongoing battles and enduring courage, a narrative crafted to ease you into restful sleep. The kingdom, bolstered by the victories at Montchisard and Jacob's Ford, entered a period of cautious rebuilding as the summer heat intensified. Jerusalem, its stones radiating warmth, thrummed with a tentative vitality, its markets fragrant with the spice of cinnamon and the crispness of newly woven linen. Baldwin, though celebrated as a warrior king, bore the growing burden of his illness, his chest now scarred with sores that stung in the heat. His breath laboured at times, yet his mind remained a beacon of clarity and purpose. The palace, with its cool corridors and the gentle splash of courtyard fountains, transformed into a command centre, its halls filled with the rustle of dispatches and the soft tread of messengers bearing news from the frontiers. The next challenge emerged in August 1179, when Saladin launched a daring raid on the castle of Le Chastelet, a key outpost on the Upper Jordan. Baldwin, alerted by a scout whose face was pale with urgency, rallied his forces despite the physician's urgent pleas for rest. The journey was punishing, his litter jolted over rocky trails, the air thick with the dust of the highlands and the scent of parched grass from the hills. Sir Geoffrey, his armour scratched from past fights, steadied the litter, his voice gruff. "Sire, your body can't endure this, let the generals lead." Baldwin's eyes, bright with resolve despite his fatigue, met his. "I lead, or the castle falls," he replied, his voice a quiet command. The troops, witnessing their king's determination, straightened their spines, their swords clanking as they marched under a sky streaked with heat. The siege of Le Chastelet was a harrowing ordeal. Saladin's forces, numbering over 2,000, encircled the castle. their siege towers casting long shadows as they battered the walls. Baldwin, positioned on a ridge overlooking the stronghold, directed the defense from his litter, his numb hands clutching a worn battle plan. He ordered the archers to target the tower's supports, a tactic that toppled two structures, while the knights held the gate against a fierce assault. The air rang with the crash of timber and the cries of the wounded, the ground quaking under the weight of war. As night fell, casting a deep indigo over the battlefield, Saladin's army withdrew, their retreat a cloud of dust against the horizon. Geoffrey, wiping sweat from his brow, knelt beside the litter, his voice thick with emotion. "You've held the line again, sire," he said, his eyes reflecting awe. Baldwin, his breath shallow, nodded, his body trembling from the exertion. The societal response was a blend of exultation and growing alarm. The nobles, convened in the palace hall, debated the king's toll. Raymond of Tripoli, his tone grave, pressed. His victories drain him. "We must consider a regent." Count Baldwin of Ibelin, however, retorted, "His heart is our bulwark, leprosy cannot dim his fire." The common folk, hearing of the victory, saw divine intervention, their prayers rising from the markets where a weaver named Esther spun thread, murmuring, "The lion guards our towers." This duality admiration laced with concern continued to shape Baldwin's reign, his resilience a beacon amid mounting fears. Culturally, Le Chastelet inspired fresh tributes. In Judea, a poet named Samuel crafted a verse of the littered bastion, his Hebrew lines depicting Baldwin directing the archers, the sores on his chest veiled by a cloak of dawn. The poem, recited around olive presses, reached traders bound for Cairo, its cadence a soothing echo. In Jerusalem, a carpenter named Levi built a chest carved with the lion's stand, its surface showing Baldwin's litter against the castle, the piece destined for the royal stores. These cultural threads, born from reverence, spread his fame, their rhythm a lullaby as the summer nights lengthened. The ecological aftermath left a rugged but resilient terrain. The castle's surroundings, strewn with shattered beams and scorched earth, became a somber testament, its silence broken only by the wind. The Crusaders salvaged what they could water from a nearby stream, discarded weapons sustaining their return. Baldwin, resting in his litter, ordered the wounded treated, his compassion extending to a captured drummer who was released. The land, harsh yet enduring, mirrored his own tenacity, its recovery a parallel to his reign. Baldwin's resilience glowed in the autumn of 1179. Despite the physical toll his arms now too weak to lift a shield without aid, he insisted on visiting the repaired castle. One evening, as the sun cast a warm amber light over the stone walls, he addressed the garrison, his voice frail but firm. "We stand as a wall against the storm," he said, his litter carried among the soldiers. The men, their armor gleaming from recent polish, saluted, their loyalty deepened by his presence. A young swordsman, Peter, whispered to a friend, "He's our foundation," a sentiment that echoed through the ranks. The palace became a haven of strategy after Le Chastelet. Baldwin, resting in the gardens where the scent of late summer lavender mingled with the dry earth, met with William. The scholar, his face etched with worry, noted the king's pallor. "Your body falters, but your mind soars," William said, offering a scroll of Arab tactics. Baldwin, his numb hand tracing the text, nodded. "Then my mind will prevail," he replied, a resolve that shaped his future defenses. The garden, with its rustling leaves and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem took flight. The constellations a silent witness to his growing legacy. Saladin's respect deepened further, adding a layer to Baldwin's stature. An envoy, cloaked in saffron, arrived with a gift of intricately woven rugs, a gesture of tactical admiration. Baldwin, from his litter in the throne room, accepted them, his voice calm. Let this be a respite, not a surrender, he said, negotiating a brief armistice to fortify the borders. The envoy bowed, impressed, and the pact was recorded, a diplomatic triumph that eased the northern pressure. This moment, lit by the glow of lanterns, showcased Baldwin's ability to turn resilience into strategy. His leprosy a backdrop to his wisdom, the cultural impact rippled outward. In Acre, a trader named Aisha commissioned a banner of Le Chastelet, its fabric depicting Baldwin's strategic gaze, the sores on his arms veiled by a cloak of azure, the artwork, blessed by a priest, drew sailors, their prayers a soft hum. In the villages, grandmothers told their grandchildren of the littered bastion, their stories a bedtime ritual, the narrative's rhythm soothing the land as the stars emerged over Jerusalem. Baldwin's health, a relentless adversary, demanded new measures. The sores on his shoulders worsened, their edges inflamed in the heat, and his physicians suggested salves of aloe. During a visit to the Church of the Ascension, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of olive oil and wax. A lay sister, Mother Agnes, approached, offering a sprig of rosemary, her voice trembling with awe. "God's chosen bears our cross," she whispered, a belief that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity. The palace evolved into a center of fortitude as Baldwin's reign progressed. He invited a siege engineer from Byzantium, a man named Demetrios with a scarred hand, to strengthen the castles. The chamber, lit by a single torch, filled with the scent of tar as Demetrios unrolled plans. "Your walls must endure," he said, sketching reinforcements. These sessions, though taxing, sharpened Baldwin's defensive mind, his leprosy a secondary note to his leadership. The nobles, witnessing his vision, rallied further, their councils now focused on survival. The villages reflected Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Jaffa, a farmer named Reuben, whose fields had failed, received seed from the restored trade routes. His gratitude spilling into a furrow, he planted a lion in grain. This pattern, earthy and bold, spread to neighboring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its summer-blooming plains and silent wadis, began to pulse with the vitality of a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit defied his scars. The autumn of 1179 casts a golden veil over the Holy Land, the air rich with the rustle of falling leaves and the distant bleat of goats herded along the hillsides. A land breathing a cautious peace after the trials at Le Chastelet. King Baldwin IV, now 19, rests within the palace walls, his body etched with the deepening toll of leprosy shoulders, hunched with sores, hands trembling, yet his spirit remains an unyielding flame amid the kingdom's fragile stability. The scent of ripe figs wafts through the open windows, blending with the soft murmur of advisors plotting the next defense against Saladin's restless ambitions. For this next stretch of our 30-minute journey, let my soothing voice guide you through Baldwin's ongoing battles and steadfast resolve, a narrative crafted to ease you into restful sleep. The kingdom, steadied by the victories at Montgisard, Darum, and Le Chastelet, entered a season of wary rebuilding as autumn painted the landscape in hues of amber and rust. Jerusalem, its stones warmed by the fading sun, thrummed with a tentative renewal, its markets fragrant with the spice of nutmeg and the earthy aroma of freshly tilled soil. Baldwin, though revered as a warrior king, bore the relentless burden of his illness, his back now a map of weeping sores, his breath shallow in the cooler air, yet his mind remained a wellspring of strategy and hope. The palace, with its shadowed corridors and the gentle trickle of courtyard fountains, evolved into a stronghold of planning, its halls filled with the rustle of correspondence and the soft tread of messengers bearing tidings from the borders. The next challenge surfaced in October 1179, when Saladin orchestrated a cunning ambush on a Crusader caravan. near the castle of Kerak, a vital stronghold in Transjordan. Baldwin, alerted by a rider whose horse staggered with exhaustion, summoned his forces despite the physician's fervent objections. The journey was torturous. His litter jolted over uneven trails, the air thick with the dust of the highlands and the scent of dry cedar from the hills. Sir Geoffrey, his armour worn from past campaigns, steadied the litter, his voice rough with concern. "Sire, your strength ebbs, let the commanders lead." Baldwin's gaze, fierce despite his weariness, met his. "I lead, or Kerak falls," he replied, his voice a quiet decree. The troops, moved by their king's tenacity, squared their shoulders, their spears clanking as they marched under a sky streaked with twilight. The skirmish at Kerak was a tense standoff. Saladin's forces, numbering around 800, struck the caravan at dusk, their swords flashing in the fading light as they overwhelmed the guards. Baldwin, positioned on a rise overlooking the castle, directed the counterattack from his litter, his numb hands clutching a tattered battle plan. He ordered the knights to circle behind a ridge, a maneuver that caught Saladin's men off guard, while the archers rained arrows to cover the retreat. The air rang with the clash of steel and the shouts of the fallen, the ground trembling under the charge. As night enveloped the scene, casting a deep velvet over the battlefield, Saladin's raiders withdrew, their retreat a shadow against the stars. Geoffrey, wiping blood from his cheek, knelt beside the litter, his voice thick with admiration. "You've turned chaos to victory again, sire," he said, his eyes reflecting awe. Baldwin, his breath ragged, nodded, his body quivering from the effort. The societal response was a mixture of jubilation and growing unease. The nobles, gathered in the palace hall, weighed the king's toll. Raymond of Tripoli, his tone heavy, urged, "His triumphs erode his life, we must seek a successor." Count Baldwin of Ibelin, however, insisted, "His soul is our stronghold. Leprosy cannot quench his fire." The common folk, learning of the success, saw a divine hand, their prayers rising from the markets where a tanner named Isaac cured hides, murmuring, "The lion saves our roads." This duality admiration entwined with worry continued to mold Baldwin's reign, his resilience a beacon amid escalating concerns. Culturally, Kerak inspired vibrant tributes. In Samaria, a bard named David composed a lay of the littered guardian, his Aramaic verses depicting Baldwin directing the knights, the sores on his shoulders veiled by a cloak of twilight. The song, chanted around harvest fires, reached travelers bound for Baghdad, its melody a soothing echo. In Jerusalem, a silversmith named Aaron crafted a chalice etched with the lion's vigil, its surface showing Baldwin's litter against the castle, the piece destined for the cathedral's altar. These cultural threads, born from reverence, spread his fame, their rhythm a lullaby as the autumn nights deepened. The ecological aftermath left a rugged yet resilient terrain. The caravan route, strewn with broken carts and scattered goods, became a somber reminder, its silence broken only by the wind. The Crusaders salvaged what they could water from a hidden spring, abandoned spices sustaining their return. Baldwin, resting in his litter, ordered the wounded tended, his compassion extending to a captured scout who was freed with a message of peace. The land, stark yet enduring, mirrored his own tenacity, its recovery a parallel to his reign. Baldwin's resilience shone in the winter of 1179-1180. Despite the physical toll, his arms now too weak to wield a dagger without aid, he insisted on inspecting the southern defences near Gaza. One crisp morning, as the sun cast a pale light over the sand dunes, he addressed the garrison, his voice frail but firm. "We stand as a shield for the south," he said, his litter carried among the soldiers. The men, their armour dulled by salt air, saluted, their loyalty deepened by his presence. A young lancer, Matthias, whispered to a friend. "He's our cornerstone," a sentiment that resonated through the ranks. The palace became a haven of foresight after Kerak. Baldwin, resting in the gardens where the scent of late autumn olives mingled with the dry earth, met with William. The scholar, his face lined with concern, noted the king's pallor. "Your body wanes, but your wisdom grows," William said, offering a scroll of Persian strategies. Baldwin, his numb hand tracing the text, nodded. "Then my wisdom will lead," he replied, a resolve that shaped his future plans. The garden, with its rustling leaves and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem took flight. The constellations a silent witness to his evolving legacy. Saladin's respect intensified, adding a layer to Baldwin's stature. An envoy, cloaked in emerald, arrived with a gift of carved ivory, a gesture of strategic admiration. Baldwin, from his litter in the throne room, accepted it, his voice calm. "Let this be a shield, not a sword," he said, negotiating a temporary truce to reinforce the castles. The envoy bowed, impressed, and the pact was recorded, a diplomatic triumph that eased the Western pressure. This moment, lit by the glow of braziers, showcased Baldwin's ability to turn resilience into diplomacy, his leprosy a backdrop to his wisdom. The cultural impact expanded further. In Haifa, a sailor named Omar commissioned a map of Kerak, its parchment depicting Baldwin's strategic gaze, the sores on his back veiled by a cloak of dusk. The map, blessed by a priest, drew navigators, their prayers a soft hum. In the villages, fathers told their sons of the littered guardian, their stories a bedtime ritual, the narrative's rhythm soothing the land as the stars emerged over Jerusalem. Baldwin's health, a relentless adversary, demanded new care. The sores on his neck worsened, their edges inflamed in the cold, and his physicians suggested wraps of wool soaked in chamomile. During a visit to the Church of St. James, he paused to pray, his litter surrounded by guards, the air thick with the scent of cedar and wax. A lay brother, Father Luke, approached, offering a cross of olive wood, his voice trembling with awe. "God's chosen bears our trials," he whispered, a belief that spread among the faithful, reinforcing Baldwin's sanctity. The palace evolved into a center of endurance as Baldwin's reign progressed. He invited a tactician from Damascus, a man named Khalid with a keen eye, to plan mountain defenses. The chamber, lit by a single torch, filled with the scent of leather as Khalid unrolled strategies. "Your heights must hold," he said, sketching outposts. These sessions, though taxing, sharpened Baldwin's defensive mind, his leprosy a secondary note to his leadership. The nobles, witnessing his vision, rallied further, their councils now focused on survival. The villages mirrored Baldwin's influence. In a hamlet near Hebron, a potter named Sarah, whose kiln had cooled, received clay from the restored trade routes. Her gratitude spilling into a vase, she shaped a lion amid olives. This design, elegant and bold, spread to neighboring settlements, a cultural thread tying the people to their king. The land, with its autumn-tinged plains and silent wadis, began to pulse with the vitality of a kingdom awakening under a leader whose spirit defied his scars. Society in crisis. The winter of 1180 descends upon the Holy Land with a chilling silence. The air heavy with the scent of frost-kissed cedar and the faint wail of wind through Jerusalem's ancient ramparts. A city teetering on the edge of turmoil. King Baldwin IV, now 20, sits within the palace walls, his body ravaged by leprosy, legs useless, hands twisted, face half-veiled, yet his spirit clings to the throne amid a kingdom fracturing under the strain of his illness. The soft glow of oil lamps flickers through the halls, mingling with the hushed voices of nobles plotting succession as the land braces for an uncertain future. For the next 30 minutes, let my calming voice guide you through this society in crisis, a narrative of struggle and loyalty crafted to ease you into a peaceful slumber. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and step into a realm where a king's endurance shapes a nation's fate. The Holy Land in 1180 was a kingdom on the brink, its beauty marred by the growing fissures of instability. Jerusalem, its golden domes dulled by the winter gloom, pulsed with a tense energy markets fragrant with the spice of cloves and the tang of smoked meat, the sweat of soldiers guarding its walls, and the soft hum of prayers from a people divided by fear. Baldwin IV, once the young lion of Montgizard, now bore the full weight of his leprosy, his body a testament to the disease's relentless advance. His legs, paralyzed and scarred with weeping sores, confined him to a litter, his hands gnarled and numb, his face partially hidden beneath a cloth to shield the disfigurement. Yet his mind remained a beacon, his will a fragile thread holding the Crusader states together against the rising tide of Saladin's ambitions and the internal discord of his court. The crisis deepened as Baldwin's health deteriorated, plunging the kingdom into uncertainty. His reign, marked by brilliant victories, now faced the spectre of succession. The nobles, gathered in the palace's great hall with its high arches and flickering torches, debated his frailty. Raymond of Tripoli, his voice steady with experience, argued for a regent, his eyes scanning the room. "The king's body fails. We need a steady hand," he said. His words met with nods from some. Count Guy of Lusignan, ambitious and brash, countered. "His spirit leads us. Leprosy is but a test." The air grew thick with tension, the scent of beeswax and tension filling the space. Baldwin, his litter positioned near the hearth, listened silently, his numb fingers tracing the armrest, his presence a quiet force amid the strife. A personal story emerged in this turmoil. Sir Robert, a knight with a weathered face and a loyal heart, became Baldwin's steadfast companion. Tasked with adjusting the king's litter and relaying orders, Robert stood by him during council meetings, his voice a bridge between Baldwin's weakened frame and the noble's ears. One evening, as snow tapped against the windows, Robert knelt beside the litter, adjusting a cushion. "Sire, your pain is our burden," he whispered, his eyes moist. Baldwin, his voice faint, replied, "Then bear it with me." Robert, this bond, forged in shared suffering, offered Baldwin a rare comfort, his trust in the knight a pillar in the crumbling court. The societal strain intensified with succession issues. Baldwin's nephew, Baldwin V, a child of 5, was named heir, but the boy's mother, Sibylla, and her husband Guy of Lusignan schemed to seize power. The king, aware of the threat, appointed Raymond of Tripoli as regent during his absences, a decision that fueled resentment. The nobles split into factions. Some backed Raymond's stability, others supported Guy's ambition, their whispers echoing through the palace corridors. The common folk, gathered outside the gates, offered prayers, their voices rising with candles held high. A baker named Hannah, kneading dough, murmured, "The lion suffers for us," her words spreading like yeast through the city, a testament to Baldwin's enduring sanctity. Medical attempts to alleviate Baldwin's condition were futile yet persistent. Physicians, clad in robes and beaked masks filled with herbs, applied poultices of aloe and mustard, believing they could balance the humours. William of Tyre, now a bishop, documented the progression numbness spreading to Baldwin's face, his eyesight dimming yet offered no cure, his quill scratching a lament in his chronicle. The king endured these treatments with stoic silence, his faith a shield against despair. In the markets, apothecaries peddled amulets and potions, their stalls a hub of desperation. A healer named Miriam, tending a patient, whispered to a friend. The king's will is his medicine, her hope a flicker in the gloom. Culturally, Baldwin's suffering inspired a wave of reflection. In Bethlehem, artists painted icons of the suffering king, their images blending Christ's passion with Baldwin's trials, the sores on his face veiled by a halo, the works adorning local chapels. In Acre, poets composed laments of the masked martyr, their verses sung in taverns, offering solace to a people in crisis. A minstrel named Yusuf, strumming a lute, sang of the Lion's Cross, his melody a soothing cadence that drifted over the port. These expressions, born from grief, provided a way to process the unprocessable, their quiet beauty a balm as the winter nights lengthened. The ecological context added to the strain. The winter rains, though vital, eroded the repaired aqueducts, their channels clogged with mud and debris. Labourers, their cloaks sodden, worked to clear the blockages, their hammers ringing against the silence. A farmer named Levi, whose fields depended on the water, glanced at Baldwin's litter passing by, murmuring, "The lion fights the flood." This resilience mirrored Baldwin's own, the land's recovery a parallel to his struggle. The population, strained by the king's illness, turned to prayer, their faith a fragile thread in the cold. Acts of resilience flickered amid the crisis. In Jerusalem, a widow named Rachel opened her home to the sick, her hearth a haven as she distributed bread. In Bethlehem, a monk named Father Daniel organized care for lepers, his voice leading hymns, inspired by Baldwin's own endurance. These efforts, though small, wove a network of hope, their stories a whisper in the night as the snow fell over the city. The palace gardens, now a haven of frost, became Baldwin's retreat, under a canopy of bare branches, where the night air carried the faint scent of frozen roses. He sat with William. One night, a messenger reported a Saladin incursion near Nablus, and Baldwin, though weary, ordered a watch, his mind ever vigilant. "We protect our own," he said, his voice soft but resolute. The garden, with its crunch of snow and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem persisted. The constellations a silent witness to his fading strength. The early spring of 1181 casts a pale light over the Holy Land, the air tinged with the damp scent of thawing earth and the faint rustle of olive branches stirring in a hesitant breeze. A land shadowed by uncertainty. King Baldwin IV, now 21, lingers within the palace walls, his body a fragile shell ravaged by leprosy, legs paralyzed, hands twisted into claws, face half-veiled, yet his spirit clings to the throne as the kingdom teeters on the edge of collapse. The soft drip of melting snow echoes through the halls, mingling with the whispered debates of nobles grappling with his fading rule, as the people hold their breath for what lies ahead. For this next stretch of our 30-minute journey, let my soothing voice guide you through this society in crisis, a narrative of endurance and fragile hope, crafted to ease you into a restful slumber. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and step into a realm where a king's resolve shapes a nation's destiny. The Holy Land in 1181 was a kingdom strained to its limits, its beauty dulled by the weight of internal strife and external threats. Jerusalem, its golden domes softened by the spring mist, pulsed with a tense undercurrent, markets fragrant with the spice of cardamom and the tang of curing leather, the sweat of soldiers patrolling its battlements, and the soft hum of prayers from a people divided by fear and faith. Baldwin IV, once the young lion of Montgisard, now bore the full brunt of his leprosy, his body a map of suffering, his legs useless and scarred with open sores, his hands gnarled and numb, his face partially hidden beneath a cloth to shield the disfigurement spreading across his cheeks. Yet his mind remained a lighthouse, his will a fragile thread, holding the Crusader states together against Saladin's growing power and the fracturing of his court. The crisis deepened as Baldwin's health plummeted, casting a pall over the kingdom's stability. His reign, once marked by brilliant victories, now faced the spectre of his mortality, his body weakening with each passing day. The nobles, assembled in the palace's great hall with its towering arches and flickering torches, grappled with the inevitable. Raymond of Tripoli, his voice laced with concern, pressed for action, his eyes scanning the room. "The king's decline is our peril, we must name a regent," he insisted. His words met with a murmur of agreement from some. Guy of Lusignan, bold and calculating, countered. His spirit still leads leprosy, is but a shadow, his ambition gleaming in the firelight. The air grew heavy with the scent of wax and tension. Baldwin's litter positioned near the hearth, his numb fingers resting on the armrest, his presence a silent rebuke to their discord. The personal bond with Sir Robert grew ever more vital in this turmoil. The knight, his face weathered by years of service, remained Baldwin's unwavering support, adjusting the king's litter and relaying his commands with a voice steady as stone. One chilly evening, as the wind howled outside, Robert knelt beside the litter, smoothing a blanket over Baldwin's legs. "Sire, your pain is our honor," he whispered, his eyes glistening. Baldwin, his voice a faint thread, replied, "Then honor me with strength." Robert, this connection, forged in shared adversity, offered Baldwin a rare solace, his trust in the knight a lifeline amid the court's chaos. The societal strain escalated with the succession crisis. Baldwin V, his nephew and heir, a boy of 6, was too young to rule, leaving the throne vulnerable. Sibylla, the boy's mother, and her husband, Guy of Lusignan, plotted to secure power, their whispers filling the palace corridors with intrigue. Baldwin, aware of the threat, leaned on Raymond of Tripoli as regent during his absences, a choice that deepened the rift. The nobles splintered, Raymond's faction advocated stability, while Guy's allies pushed for control, their arguments echoing like thunder. Outside the palace, the common folk gathered, their candles flickering in the dusk, their prayers a soft chant. A seamstress named Judith, stitching by lamplight, murmured, "The lion bears our cross," her words weaving through the city, a testament to Baldwin's enduring sanctity. Medical efforts to ease Baldwin's suffering grew more desperate, though still futile. Physicians, clad in robes and beaked masks stuffed with rosemary, applied compresses of chamomile and mustard plasters, clinging to the humoral theory that imbalance caused his disease. William of Tyre, now a bishop with a furrowed brow, recorded the progression numbness creeping to Baldwin's face, his eyesight fading into a haze, yet offered no remedy, his quill tracing a mournful account in his chronicle. The king endured these treatments with stoic silence, his faith a shield against the pain. In the markets, apothecaries hawked amulets of dried herbs and vials of holy water, their stalls a hub of desperation. A healer named Elias, tending a patient, whispered to a colleague, "The king's soul is his cure," his hope a fragile light in the gloom. Culturally, Baldwin's decline inspired a profound wave of reflection. In Hebron, artists painted icons of the crowned sufferer, their images blending Christ's agony with Baldwin's trials, the sores on his face veiled by a crown of thorns, the works gracing local shrines. In Jaffa, poets composed elegies of the veiled saint, their verses sung in dockside taverns, offering solace to a people in distress. A minstrel named Isaac, strumming a harp, sang of the lion's burden, his melody a soothing cadence that drifted over the port. These expressions, born from grief, provided a way to process the unprocessable, their quiet beauty a balm as the spring rains fell. The ecological context compounded the crisis. The spring floods, though life-giving, overwhelmed the repaired aqueducts, their channels choked with silt and debris. Labourers, their cloaks soaked, worked to clear the blockages, their shovels clanging against the mud. A farmer named Samuel, whose fields depended on the water, glanced at Baldwin's litter passing by, murmuring, "The lion fights the flood." This parallel to Baldwin's own struggle underscored the land's resilience, its recovery a mirror to his endurance. The population, strained by the king's illness, turned to faith, their prayers a fragile thread in the damp. Acts of resilience flickered through the crisis. In Jerusalem, a blacksmith named Daniel opened his forge to shelter the homeless, his anvil ringing with purpose. In Hebron, a nun named Sister Mary organized care for the sick, her voice leading psalms, inspired by Baldwin's own fortitude. These efforts, though small, wove a network of hope, their stories a whisper in the night as the rain pattered over the city. The palace gardens, now a haven of damp earth, became Baldwin's retreat, under a canopy of budding branches, where the night air carried the faint scent of wet roses. He sat with William. One night, a messenger reported a Saladin probe near Jericho, and Baldwin, though weary, ordered a watch, his mind ever vigilant. "We protect our soul," he said, his voice soft but resolute. The garden, with its drip of rain and starlit sky, became a sanctuary where Baldwin's dreams of a united Jerusalem persisted, the constellations a silent witness to his waning strength. Legacy and passing. The spring of 1185 dawns over the Holy Land with a somber hush. The air heavy with the scent of blooming almond blossoms and the faint sigh of wind through Jerusalem's weathered ramparts. A city bracing for the end of an era. King Baldwin IV, now 24, lies within the palace walls, his body a frail husk ravaged by leprosy, limbs paralyzed. Face disfigured beneath a veil, yet his spirit lingers as a fading light over a kingdom on the cusp of change. The soft patter of rain taps against the stone, mingling with the muted prayers of a people mourning their leper king, as the legacy of his reign prepares to echo through history. For the next 30 minutes, let my soothing voice guide you through Baldwin's legacy and passing, a narrative of courage and enduring hope crafted to ease you into a restful slumber. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and step into a realm where a king's spirit outlives his mortal frame. The Holy Land, in 1185, was a kingdom teetering on the edge of transformation, its beauty tinged with the shadow of loss. Jerusalem, its golden dome softened by the spring mist, pulsed with a somber energy, markets fragrant with the spice of saffron and the tang of preserved olives, the sweat of soldiers guarding its walls, and the soft hum of prayers from a people grappling with grief. Baldwin IV, the young lion of Montgisard, now lay near death, his body a testament to leprosy's relentless toll, his legs and arms paralyzed, his hands twisted into useless claws, his face a mask of sores hidden beneath a cloth. Yet his mind, though clouded by pain, remained a beacon of the legacy he would leave behind, his will a thread holding the Crusader states together as Saladin's power grew and internal strife loomed. Baldwin's health had reached its nadir, marking the end of his reign, confined to his bedchamber, the air thick with the scent of medicinal herbs and the faint musk of sweat. He could no longer rise, his body a prisoner of the disease that had defined his life. The physicians, their beaked masks drooping with exhaustion, applied compresses of lavender and recited prayers, their efforts a desperate bid to ease his suffering. William of Tyre, his face lined with sorrow, recorded the final days. His quill scratching a lament, the king's body fails, but his soul ascends. On March 16, 1185, Baldwin IV breathed his last, his death a quiet release in the dim light of the palace, his litter set aside as a symbol of his past strength. The room fell silent, save for the soft sobs of Sir Robert, who knelt beside the bed, his voice breaking. "Sire, you've given us all," he whispered, his loyalty a final tribute. The immediate aftermath plunged the kingdom into uncertainty. Baldwin Fee, his nephew and heir, a boy of 9, ascended the throne under the regency of Raymond of Tripoli. But the child's frail health mirrored his uncle's fate. Sibylla and Guy of Lusignan, seizing the moment, maneuvered for power, their whispers filling the palace with intrigue. The nobles, gathered in the hall with its high arches and guttering torches, debated the future. Raymond, his voice firm, urged stability, while Guy, his ambition unchecked, pushed for control. The air grew heavy with the scent of wax and dissent, the throne a prize contested in Baldwin's shadow. Outside, the common folk lit candles, their prayers a soft chant, a baker named Esther murmuring. The lion's light endures, her words spreading like dough through the city. A personal story emerged in this transition. By 1350, as Europe recovered from its own plague, a stonemason named Yusuf in Jerusalem honored Baldwin's memory, rebuilding a wall damaged by time. Yusuf worked alongside his apprentice Miriam, a girl orphaned by the Black Death. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the stones, Yusuf paused, his hammer resting. This king fought with a broken body, he told Miriam, shaping a lion's head into the masonry. We build for his strength. Their labor, a quiet tribute, transformed the scarred streets into pathways of hope, the clatter of stonework echoing Baldwin's unbowed resolve. The cultural legacy of Baldwin IV flourished in the aftermath. In Judea, Hebron's storytellers recited the lion's lament, their Arabic tales of his battles against Saladin inspiring local pride. The narratives carried by pilgrims to Mecca. In Galilee, Nazareth's artisans crafted wooden reliefs of the king on a litter, their works adorning homes, sparking a wave of artistic reverence that deepened with the Black Death's echo. A weaver named Leah, stitching a tapestry in 1350, wove Baldwin's image into the fabric, her threads a blend of past glory and present recovery. These cultural threads, amplified by the plague's memory, linked Baldwin's courage to the survivors' resilience. Labor dynamics, influenced by Baldwin's merit-based rule, evolved further. In Hebron, Yusuf's craft fetched higher wages, his skill a legacy of the king's emphasis on ability over birth. In Nazareth, farmers like a widow named Rachel negotiated terms for their fields, their harvests a testament to a society reshaped by resilience. The Black Death, echoing Baldwin's trials, fostered a world where strength, not status, defined value, his reign a distant but potent influence. Faith, inspired by Baldwin, adapted with profound depth. In Jerusalem, Father Elias led a festival for Saint Lazarus in 1350, his voice guiding prayers for the afflicted, strengthening community ties in the plague's wake. In Hebron, a shrine to the Virgin Mary rose, its devotion a blend of tradition and gratitude, its walls etched with Baldwin's name. In Nazareth, St. George's altars grew, their faith a fusion of local heritage and hope, his legacy a spark for renewal. The plague's spiritual impact wove Baldwin's endurance into a faith of compassion and collective strength. The path to recovery thrived across the land. In Jerusalem, markets bustled with trade, their goods spices, silks, and grain sustaining a reborn city. In Hebron, vineyards yielded grapes anew, their wine a symbol of renewal poured in Baldwin's honor. In Nazareth, olive groves flourished again, their oil a promise of abundance pressed by hands remembering his reign. The land, once etched with neglect, now danced with the vitality of restored life, its quietude blossoming into the harmony of human triumph. Baldwin IV's story, though ended in 1185, lives on a king who turned affliction into a crown of courage, guiding his people toward a legacy that endures. His reign, marked by battles against Saladin and a body ravaged by leprosy, left a kingdom intact through his wisdom and resolve. Despite his disfigurement, he led from a litter, uniting nobles and inspiring awe, even from his adversary. As the rain softens over Jerusalem, his spirit shines a beacon of strength that outlasts the stars emerging in the twilight sky. The late spring of 1185 lingers over the Holy Land with a tender stillness, the air rich with the scent of wild lavender and the gentle rustle of fig leaves swaying in a soft breeze. A land poised on the brink of a solemn farewell. King Baldwin IV, now 24, rests within the shadowed halls of the Jerusalem palace. His body, a frail vessel ravaged by leprosy, limbs paralyzed. Face a mask of sores beneath a veil, yet his spirit glows as a fading ember over a kingdom on the cusp of transformation. The distant chime of church bells weaves through the evening, mingling with the hushed prayers of a people mourning their leper king, as his legacy prepares to etch itself into eternity. For this next stretch of our 30-minute journey, let my soothing voice guide you through Baldwin's legacy and passing, a narrative of courage and timeless hope, crafted to ease you into a restful slumber. The Holy Land in 1185 was a kingdom trembling on the edge of a new chapter, its beauty softened by the weight of impending loss. Jerusalem, its golden domes muted by the spring haze, pulsed with a somber vitality, markets fragrant with the spice of coriander and the tang of dried apricots, the sweat of soldiers guarding its walls, and the soft hum of prayers from a people united in grief. Baldwin IV, the young lion whose victories had once thundered across the plains, now lay near his end, his body a testament to leprosy's merciless advance, his legs and arms locked in paralysis, his hands twisted into useless claws, his face a network of sores hidden beneath a cloth. Yet his mind, though dimmed by pain, held a legacy of wisdom and resolve, a thread binding the Crusader states as Saladin's power swelled, and internal discord threatened to unravel all he had built. Baldwin's final days were a quiet descent. His health, a fragile thread snapped by the disease, confined to a chamber draped in heavy tapestries, the air thick with the bitter scent of medicinal herbs, sage, thyme, and a hint of rue, and the faint musk of his own weakening body. He could no longer rise. The physicians, their beaked masks sagging with fatigue, applied compresses of chamomile and recited Latin prayers, their efforts a desperate attempt to soothe his suffering. William of Tyre, his face etched with grief, sat by the bedside, his quill scratching a final entry. The king's flesh yields, but his soul ascends to glory. On March 16, 1185, as dawn broke with a pale light filtering through the window, Baldwin IV drew his last breath, his death a silent release in the dim room, his litter set aside as a relic of his past strength. Sir Robert, his loyal knight, knelt beside the bed, tears streaking his weathered face. "Sire, you've left us a legacy of steel," he whispered, his voice a final salute to a king who had given all. The immediate aftermath cast the kingdom into a storm of uncertainty. Baldwin Fee, his nephew and heir, a boy of 9, frail in health, ascended under the regency of Raymond of Tripoli. But the child's weakness echoed his uncle's fate. Sibylla and Guy of Lusignan, seizing the chaos, maneuvered for the throne, their whispers a constant hum in the palace corridors. The nobles, gathered in the hall with its high arches and sputtering torches, clashed over the future. Raymond, his voice firm with experience, urged, "We must stabilize with Tripoli's guidance," while Guy, his ambition a sharp edge, countered, "Lusignan will lead us to victory." The air grew dense with the scent of wax and rivalry. The throne a contested prize in Baldwin's shadow. Outside, the common folk lit lanterns, their prayers a soft chant under the spring sky. A tanner named Micah murmuring, "The lion's spirit lives. his words rippling through the city. By 1350, as Europe emerged from the Black Death's grip, Baldwin's legacy found new life. In Jerusalem, a stonemason named Yusuf, his hands calloused from years of labor, rebuilt a section of the city wall damaged by time and neglect, working alongside his apprentice Miriam, a girl orphaned by the plague. He paused one afternoon as the sun warmed the stones. This king fought with a broken body, he told her, chiseling a lion's head into the masonry, its mane a symbol of Baldwin's courage. Their labor, a quiet homage, transformed the scarred streets into pathways of hope, the rhythmic tap of hammers echoing the unbowed resolve of the Leper king. The cultural legacy of Baldwin IV blossomed in the wake of his death. In Judea, Hebron storytellers recited the lion's farewell, their Arabic tales of his battles against Saladin inspiring a deep pride, the narratives carried by pilgrims to distant lands. In Galilee, Nazareth's artisans crafted wooden reliefs of the king on a litter, their works adorning homes and churches, a wave of artistic reverence that surged with the Black Death's memory. A potter named Rebecca, shaping clay in 1350, etched Baldwin's image into a vase, her fingers tracing a lion amid olive branches, a blend of past glory and present renewal. These cultural threads, amplified by the plague's echo, linked Baldwin's endurance to the survivor's resilience, his story a bridge between eras. Labor dynamics, shaped by Baldwin's merit-driven rule, evolved further in the 14th century. In Hebron, Yusuf's craft commanded higher wages, his skill a legacy of the king's emphasis on ability over lineage. In Nazareth, farmers like a widow named Sarah negotiated terms for their fields, their harvests a testament to a society reshaped by resilience. The Black Death, mirroring Baldwin's trials, fostered a world where strength, not status, defined value. His reign a distant yet potent influence on the labor market. Faith, inspired by Baldwin, adapted with profound depth in the post-plague era. In Jerusalem, Father Elias led a festival for St. Lazarus in 1350, his voice guiding prayers for the afflicted, strengthening community ties amid the recent devastation. In Hebron, a shrine to the Virgin Mary rose, its walls inscribed with Baldwin's name, its devotion a blend of tradition and gratitude. In Nazareth, St. George's altars flourished, their faith a fusion of local heritage and hope, his legacy a spark for spiritual renewal. The plague's impact wove Baldwin's endurance into a faith of compassion and collective strength, his memory a guiding light. The path to recovery thrived across the land by 1350. In Jerusalem, markets buzzed with trade, their stalls brimming with spices, silks, and grain, sustaining a reborn city. In Hebron, vineyards yielded grapes anew, their wine poured in toasts to Baldwin's honor. In Nazareth, olive groves flourished again, their oil pressed by hands recalling his reign. The land, once scarred by neglect, now danced with the vitality of restored life, its stillness giving way to the vibrant pulse of human endeavor. Baldwin IV's story, though ended in 1185, endures as a beacon of courage. His reign, marked by battles against Saladin and a body broken by leprosy, preserved a kingdom through his wisdom and resolve. Despite his disfigurement, he led from a litter, uniting nobles and earning Saladin's respect, his adversary once noting, "This boy fights with the soul of a lion." As the rain softens over Jerusalem, his spirit shines a legacy of strength that outlasts the stars emerging in the twilight. A quiet promise carried on the evening breeze. The late spring of 1185 fades into a tranquil dusk over the Holy Land, the air soft with the scent of blooming jasmine and the gentle rustle of olive leaves swaying in the evening breeze, a land settling into the quiet aftermath of a king's passing. The golden spires of Jerusalem gleam faintly under the twilight, where the distant murmur of pilgrims blends with the soft toll of church bells, a city honoring the memory of Baldwin IV. The sky deepens to a velvet blue, carrying the warm fragrance of earth and the tender echo of a legacy, as villages hum with the rhythm of rebuilding and sanctuaries resonate with hymns of gratitude. From the sunlit plains of Judea to the rugged hills of Galilee, the story of the Leper King concludes, a tale of courage and sacrifice etched into the soul of the land. In Jerusalem, the palace chamber where Baldwin IV drew his last breath stands silent, the air still heavy with the fading scent of medicinal herbs and the faint musk of his final struggle. On March 16th, 1185, as the first light of dawn crept through the window, the young king slipped away, his body a broken shell of leprosy, limbs paralyzed, face disfigured beneath a veil, yet his spirit ascended like a quiet flame. Sir Robert, his loyal knight, remained by his side, tears tracing paths down his weathered cheeks as he whispered, "Your legacy is our strength, sire." The room, once a hub of strategy, now held only the echo of Baldwin's resolve, his litter a silent sentinel of his reign. The kingdom, thrust into uncertainty, saw Baldwin V ascend under Raymond of Tripoli's regency. But the child's frail health and Sibylla's ambitions with Guy of Lusignan soon unraveled the throne, leading to Jerusalem's fall to Saladin in 1187. Yet Baldwin's legacy endured, a beacon through the centuries. By 1350, as Europe healed from the Black Death, a stonemason named Yusuf in Jerusalem chiseled a lion's head into a rebuilt wall, his apprentice Miriam at his side. "This king taught us to rise," Yusuf said, his hammer tapping a rhythm of hope. Their work transformed the city's scars into a testament, the clatter of stone echoing Baldwin's unyielding spirit. Culturally, Baldwin's story wove itself into the fabric of the land. In Hebron, storytellers sang the lion's farewell, their Arabic tales of his battles inspiring pride, carried by pilgrims to distant shores. In Nazareth, artisans crafted reliefs of the king on a litter, their woodwork adorning homes, a wave of reverence deepened by the plague's memory. A vintner named Jacob, pouring wine in 1350, raised a glass to the lion who endured, his toast a cultural thread linking past and present. Labour, shaped by Baldwin's merit, flourished in the 14th century. In Hebron, Yusuf's craft earned fair wages, his skill a legacy of the king's vision. In Nazareth, farmers like Sarah negotiated for their fields, their harvests a sign of a society reborn through resilience. The Black Death, echoing Baldwin's trials, fostered a world where strength prevailed, his influence a distant yet potent force. Faith, inspired by his sacrifice, blossomed anew in Jerusalem. Father Elias led a St. Lazarus festival in 1350, his voice guiding prayers for the afflicted, uniting the community. In Hebron, a Virgin Mary shrine rose, its walls bearing Baldwin's name, a blend of tradition and gratitude. In Nazareth, St. George's altars thrived, his legacy a spark for spiritual renewal. The plague wove his endurance into a faith of compassion, his memory a guiding star. The land thrived in recovery by 1350. Jerusalem's markets brimmed with trade, its goods spices, silks, olives sustaining a reborn city. Hebron's vineyards yielded wine, poured in Baldwin's honor. Nazareth's olive groves flourished, their oil a promise of abundance. The earth, once scarred by neglect, now sang with the vitality of restored life, its quietude blossoming into the harmony of human triumph. Baldwin IV's tale ends not with death, but with a legacy that outshines the stars. His reign, forged in battles against Saladin and a body broken by leprosy, preserved a kingdom through wisdom and resolve. Despite his disfigurement, he led from a litter, uniting nobles and earning Saladin's respect, who once mused, "This boy's heart is iron." As the night deepens over Jerusalem, his spirit glows a beacon of courage that endures, a quiet promise carried on the wind, lulling the land into a peaceful rest.